Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
I'm not obligated to explain, she says, her voice almost casual in its coldness. I stand there in our bedroom, eyes tracing the corners of the walls, the furniture, the bed, trying to hold myself together. She's on the other side of the room, arms folded, chin raised, as if challenging me. She doesn't bother to look guilty, doesn't bother to look anything. That's when I realize my hand is clenched around her pillow, knuckles whitening. I lift it to my face, inhaling the faint hint of her shampoo. The scent is calming and terrifying all at once. It reminds me of late nights when we talk until we fell asleep, my arm draped over her waist. Now it's like sniffing the ghosts of the life we used to share. I feel my heart pounding, but my voice comes out deceptively steady. It's our marriage, I say. I deserve some explanation. There's a dryness in my mouth, and with every syllable, my throat tightens. She doesn't move, doesn't budge from her stance. The air is sharp, bristling with unspoken accusations. Our bedroom lamp is dim, casting shadows across her face. And then her words again. I'm not obligated to explain, she repeats, more quietly this time, as if I'm too slow to understand it the first time. She turns away, heading out. I'm left, an idiot with my face buried in her pillow, her lingering scent swirling with 1,000 memories. I realize I'm trembling, the tension inside me coiling tighter and tighter. I don't recall how long I stand there before I finally drop the pillow and follow her out into the hallway. My shoes scrape across the hardwood, and every echo sounds hollow as a drumbeat. I remember how it all began a few weeks ago. At least, that's when I first allowed myself to believe something was off. Ironically, it was at night, when she was sound asleep. I'd reached for her phone to set an early alarm for her. My phone was dead. Hers was right there. Simple enough gesture. But my thumb brushed the screen the wrong way, opening some note. The text was short, like a question to herself. Asterisk, should I tell him the truth or stay silent? Asterisk, she typed it in the Notes app, maybe in a moment of guilt or hesitation. Maybe she'd never intended me to see it at all. I stared at that line, and the floor vanished from under me. You know that moment when every suspicion you had, every awkward vibe, every forced smile she gave you in the last weeks, all fused together into something indisputable. That was it. Right then, everything snapped into focus. I confronted her about it the next morning. She denied having any secret that deserved discussion, simply said it was a work matter, a tricky client at her marketing job. She spun some story about not wanting me to worry, but the crack in her voice, the flicker in her eyes told me otherwise. I spent the next days in quiet torment, scanning her gestures, her bedtime routine, those half-baked excuses of late meetings or urgent calls. She was asterisk to asterisk polite, asterisk to asterisk sweet in the moments we did share. And her eyes, they had that distant look, like she'd retreated behind some internal barricade, unwilling to let me in. And then that evening, damn, I remember it well, she stayed out particularly late. Something about an after-hours event with colleagues. I was restless at home, flipping through old photos on my computer. One shot from 2 years ago, the corporate gathering at a restaurant. She was there, smiling wide, and next to her stood a tall, well-built guy with short, dark hair. His name was Jason Miller, I recalled. He was in sales. I'd only met him twice. At the time, he'd seemed nice enough. Shook my hand, gave me the typical grin of a salesperson. Then I'd never given him a second thought. But that night, looking at the photo, everything clicked into place. I remembered little details, the way Sarah had laughed at his jokes, the fact that they'd once texted about potential marketing collaboration. I thought nothing of it then. We trust our spouses, right? We trust them not to walk into the arms of another person. But with that note in her phone echoing in my mind, my gut twisted. Asterisk, he's the one, asterisk, I thought. Asterisk, he's the one she's been seeing. Asterisk, she came home past midnight, smelling of strong perfume and wine. I didn't say anything, just stood in the kitchen, arms folded. She offered a quick, distant smile, then brushed past me to the bedroom. I watched her close the door. Something in me died that night. The next day, I printed out Jason's photo from that old corporate event. I pinned it to a board in the garage, among dusty tools and leftover wood scraps. In the quiet gloom of that space, I made a makeshift target out of his face, taped it up, grabbed a handful of nails, and hammered them into the eyes, the mouth, over and over. I wasn't thinking rationally. It was all raw, a savage reaction to feeling powerless. My ears rang with each strike of the hammer. It wasn't for revenge in that moment. I just needed to do something with my hands. Inside, day by day, I said nothing. We existed in this bizarre dance. I was stoic, she was guarded, and neither of us was naming the obvious. We slept in the same bed. We went through routines. I'd stare at her slicing vegetables for dinner, watch the way she brushed her hair in the mirror. Everything so normal, and yet so hopelessly broken. Then I tried a different tactic. Each evening, I set my phone on the kitchen counter and played a short audio clip on a loop. My own voice, recorded quietly. There was a lie here. Over and over. A gentle, monotone echo. I wanted it to seep into the walls, to claim our home with the truth she refused to confess. I told myself it was my way of punishing her, letting that phrase chase her around every corner, into her dreams. But deep down, I wondered if I was punishing both of us. Eventually, she broke. She found me in the hallway one evening, tears streaking her cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said in a trembling voice. I didn't know what to do. I never planned for it to go so far. My response was a single nod. I said nothing more. Let her words hang in the stale air. Let her see that I was beyond immediate forgiveness. Let her see I was dead inside. Because that's how I felt. A hollow shell of a man who'd put everything into a marriage, only to discover he was a fool. She sobbed, covering her face with both hands, murmuring variations of, "I'm sorry, and I should have told you." I kept my arms pinned to my sides, my fists clenched, chest burning with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. Part of me longed to grab her, demand every detail, force her to say it out loud. I slept with him. I wanted him. Another part of me just wanted to curl into a corner, hide from the world. That was how it began to unravel everything. Over the next days, she tried to patch it up with confessions that only half made sense. She refused to name him. But it was obvious. Jason. The tall, confident guy in sales who probably told her sweet nothings about how special she was, how neglected she must have felt. I pictured them in some sleek hotel bar or a fancy downtown restaurant, leaning in close, sharing private jokes, her hand on his thigh. The images shredded my nerves. Yes, eventually I forced her to speak about the physical side. The first night it happened. Where? How? And she gave me a tearful summary, voice trembling. She said it was never planned to be an affair. It just happened after a long dinner meeting. Too many drinks, a shared ride back to her car, a fleeting moment that turned into a reckless kiss, then a tumble into the backseat. I wanted to rip her words out of her throat. I wanted to silence her, to preserve some last shred of ignorance. Yet I needed to hear it, to saturate my mind with the raw, punishing truth. The images were vivid in my head. Him sliding into the seat beside her, pulling her close, breathing in her ear, her dress riding up her thighs, the heat of their bodies, the moan she'd once reserved for me alone. I felt acid in my stomach. My nails bit into my palms. Even now, describing it, I can almost taste the bile in my mouth. She said she ended it quickly, that it was a mistake. Then I found out it continued. Hotel rooms sometimes, stolen lunches behind tinted windows, A series of lies I never would have guessed her capable of. She tried to backtrack, claiming she was confused, lonely, that I'd become distant in my own way. Maybe so. But that doesn't excuse a betrayal so deep it leaves me gutted. And yet we tried to coexist under the same roof. No real confrontation, no final meltdown. Just living in parallel lines, forging through day after day, trying to see if the threads of our marriage could be knitted back. I started analyzing every moment, like some private investigator in my own home. The nights got longer, the tension thicker. One evening, I found myself in the garage again. I stared at Jason's picture, battered with nails. I hammered a few more. By then, it was almost a ritual. I never said a word to her about it. She rarely ventured into that part of the house anyway. My anger was a living thing, thrashing inside my chest, but I kept a cool mask on my face. I guess I wanted her to feel unsettled by my calmness, to sense the undercurrent of violent emotion she could no longer read from the outside. It was my only way of regaining some control. Feed the anger in secret, but show her near indifference on the surface. I started to fantasize about confrontation. Storming into Jason's office, or cornering him in a parking garage, saying something like, "So you're the guy who thought it was okay to crawl into my wife's bed." I pictured his smug grin fading, his bravado trembling under my stare. I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider violence. But I also knew it wouldn't fix anything. It would only confirm to him, and to her, that I was the wronged, humiliated husband, thrashing around like a wounded animal. So, for a while, I did nothing. The days bowled into weeks. Work became my only refuge. I'd bury myself in tasks, scanning lines of code or troubleshooting server errors, because it was easier than going home early. I took on extra projects, let my manager think I was just highly motivated. In truth, I was terrified of the silent space that waited for me in our house. The nights were worst. Sarah would slip into bed, staying on her side, a subtle wall of pillows between us. I'd lie there, eyes wide open, replaying every moment we'd shared over the last decade. The laughter, the inside jokes, the gentle mornings with coffee and sunrise. Now all I felt was a vacuum. Sometimes I got up in the middle of the night, roamed the hallway, or sat in the living room with a single lamp lit. I'd place my phone on the kitchen table and let that recording loop. Asterisk. There was a lie here. Asterisk over and over. It was becoming an obsession, my anchor of honesty. She never asked me to stop, which almost made it creepier. Occasionally, I caught her standing in the doorway, eyes pleading. But I'd just turn my gaze to her, empty, and watch her vanish back into the bedroom. One night, she crumpled onto the couch beside me, tears in her eyes. "Mark," she said, voice shaking, "if you want me gone, say so. I'll pack up. I understand if you can't look at me anymore." I stared at her a long time before replying. My voice sounded disturbingly calm. "I'm not sure what I want. I'm not sure I know anything anymore." The dryness in my tone made her flinch. Then I added, "But it's not me who should decide that. It was you who left the marriage first." She squeezed her eyes shut, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her sobs were quiet, but her shoulders heaved. I watched her with a distant sense of pity, or maybe regret. At that point, my illusions were shredded. I could no longer muster the affectionate man I used to be. This was a foreign woman in front of me, one who'd shared her bed, her body, with another man and only told me when I'd forced it out of her. Eventually, I got up and left her there, the loop of my recorded voice continuing in the background. Asterisk. There was a lie here. Asterisk. Some time passed, days, maybe a couple of weeks. The details blur. I found myself sifting through more old photos on my computer, stumbling on that corporate picture with Jason. Anger flared in my gut. Then I noticed something. In the background, beyond where Sarah and Jason were standing, there was a group of colleagues. They all looked so normal, so clueless. I realized how easily two people can slip away into secrecy while everyone else is none the wiser. The darkness rose in me. Asteriski deserve revenge, asterisk, I thought. For a brief moment, I toyed with the idea of hacking Jason's email, leaking humiliating personal data, or even sending an anonymous message to his boss. Childish fantasies of payback. But eventually, I settled on something simpler. Confront him face to face. Force him to see me, to see the devastation he'd caused. Maybe I'd let him know just how intimately I'd come to understand his existence, like I'd read every detail of his life. I reached out to a mutual acquaintance at my company, who also had ties with Jason's circle, arranged a quick coffee meeting under the pretense of discussing potential sales synergy. My contact provided Jason's phone number. For 2 days, I stared at the number on a sticky note. My hand itched to dial it. But I didn't, because deep down, I realized, if I crossed that line, I'd be stepping into a confrontation that could spiral out of control. So I hung back. I told myself, asterisk, wait. Bide your time. Asterisk, let the tension build, and maybe he'd slip up. Or maybe Sarah would eventually admit the full extent of what had happened. Maybe there was some twisted closure waiting. In the midst of it all, she tried to approach me differently. One evening, she started cooking dinner earlier than usual. She set the table with a fresh bouquet, lit a candle. When I walked in, the aroma of pasta sauce filled the air. She turned to me, a pleading look in her eyes. "I made your favorite," she said, voice almost trembling with hope. I stood for a moment, uncertain. Then I moved to the kitchen sink to wash my hands, my movements mechanical, my chest tight. Once or twice, I glanced at her. She wore this soft, floral dress that reminded me of the early years of our marriage. Her hair was done with extra care, the very hair that Jason's hands had probably been tangled in. A sharp pang stabbed my gut. We sat down to eat. She talked about mundane things, her day, a new marketing campaign at work, a friend's baby shower. I listened politely, nodded occasionally. She tried a half-hearted joke about how I was always so serious in the mornings. I forced a small smile. She must have seen the emptiness behind it. Finally, she said, "Mark, I miss you. I miss us." I put down my fork. My appetite was gone anyway. "Us died the moment you let him touch you," I said quietly. "You want me to pretend we can just go back?" She bit her lip. "No. I need some sign that we're not finished." A bitter laugh escaped me. "I think we finished when you decided you weren't obligated to explain anything." She flinched at the echo of her own words. Then, after a few seconds of heavy silence, she stood, tears in her eyes, and left the table. I stayed there, staring at the untouched meal. In the following nights, I began to lash out in small ways. Once, I slept on the couch, refusing to come to bed. Another time, I made a point to come home very late after a work event, letting her pace and worry. I could see her tear-stained face in the hallway when I finally arrived. She said nothing, just turned and walked away. I felt a cruel satisfaction. Asterisk, cast a fraction of what you put me through, asterisk, I thought. But beneath that anger, there was an ocean of pain. I would lie awake, tears burning behind my eyes. Though none fell, my mind replayed the nights we once spent together, the comfort of her body next to mine. Now, if she so much as brushed against my arm, I'd recoil as if touched by hot iron. She started waking up earlier, probably to avoid crossing paths with me. I'd walk into the kitchen to find a pot of coffee brewed, but no sign of her. The house was becoming an emotional minefield. One morning, rummaging through old photo albums, I found a set of pictures from our honeymoon. Her bright smile, my arm around her. We looked so asterisk young, asterisk so unbreakably happy. The memory stabbed me, and I had to close the album. My anger flared, suffocating me. I grabbed a box of nails from the garage and hammered them into a chunk of scrap wood, each bang echoing with the same line in my head. Asterisk. There was a lie here. Asterisk days passed. She occasionally tried to talk about therapy or counseling. I never gave a clear answer. What for? I'd say, for me to watch you squirm while you make excuses, for some stranger to judge who's more at fault. My bitter cynicism was relentless. Eventually, she insisted on a serious talk. I can't forget how her voice shook. She cornered me in the living room, in front of the couch where I'd spent countless sleepless nights. "Mark," she said, swallowing hard, "I know you hate me right now, and you have every reason to. But we can't keep living in limbo. I can't live in this tension." I stared at her, arms crossed. "So what's your plan? You want to move in with him?" It came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't help myself. She looked genuinely wounded. "No, that's over. It ended, I swear. We cut all contact." Her voice cracked. "But you won't believe me, will you?" I didn't respond. Silence can be so loud. She took a shaky breath. I don't know what he was. An escape, I guess. I felt unloved, or maybe neglected, or maybe I was just being selfish. I needed attention, and he gave it to me in a moment of weakness. Then it spiraled. I gave a short, mirthless laugh. A spiral that involved multiple hotel visits, apparently. Her lip trembled. "Yes. So you had a lot of weak moments." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I was wrong, and I hurt you." I wanted to scream that it was more than hurt, that it was a betrayal I'd never expected to live through. But instead, I said nothing. My calm voice cracked only slightly as I muttered, "It's too late for sorry." Then I walked out of the room. Eventually, I felt the urge to do something. A sense of final closure or confrontation. Because the standoff between us was rotting me from the inside. We barely spoke except for stilted greetings and the occasional attempt at chores. The nights were torture. So I made a decision. I tracked down Jason. Face him once and for all. Enough playing the ghost in my own marriage. If Sarah wouldn't give me real answers, maybe he would. Or maybe I just needed to see his face, to see if he carried any guilt at all. I found him after work one day, in a fancy downtown bar that a colleague told me he frequented for networking. It was early evening, the place half empty. I recognized him instantly, tall, with that confident posture, neat haircut, wearing a crisp business shirt. He was talking to a bartender, a whiskey in hand. I approached. My heart hammered, but my face remained stone cold. He turned, eyes meeting mine. A flicker of recognition sparked, followed by uncertainty. "Mark, right?" he said, giving me a polite, professional smile. "Long time no see." I clenched my jaw. "Yeah. Surprised to see me." He shrugged, trying to keep that salesman grin. "A little. You? Everything okay?" I had to force myself not to throw a punch. Instead, I leaned in, voice low. "You know exactly why I'm here." His face froze for a fraction of a second. Then he cleared his throat. "Look, maybe we should go somewhere private." We stepped outside to a side alley, the city noises muffled by the tall buildings. He exhaled slowly. "I guess you found out." I stared at him, my breath fogging in the cool evening air. "That you were screwing my wife." I said, "Yes, Jason. I found out." He winced, glancing aside. "It wasn't. I never meant to." "Spare me," I hissed. "I don't need your half-assed excuses. Do you have any idea what this did to me?" He nodded, swallowing hard. "I do. Believe it or not, I feel terrible. I tried to end it." "After how many times? 10? 20? My voice shook with suppressed rage. He closed his eyes briefly. "I'm sorry, Mark. We got caught up, you know. She said things weren't working at home. I didn't handle it right. She was lonely, I guess." I let out a mirthless laugh. "So you played the hero, gave her the attention she craved." He opened his mouth, then closed it, apparently unable to find a better explanation. I stepped closer, my fists clenched. You do not ever come near her again. If I catch you so much as emailing her, calling her, thinking about her, I'll make your life a living hell. Do you understand me? His eyes flickered with fear, but also a tinge of pity. I understand. We stared at each other a moment longer, tension thrumming in the air. I could see the swirl of regret on his face. Maybe he was just good at appearing remorseful, or maybe a shred of him actually felt the weight of what he'd done. I turned on my heel and left without another word. Walking away, I felt a brief surge of triumph, but it was quickly replaced by emptiness. Nothing was fixed. My marriage was still a shattered mess. The real confrontation was with Sarah, not him. Later that night, I came home. She was in the living room, perched on the couch, hugging a throw blanket to her chest. When she looked up at me, her eyes were red, like she'd spent the evening crying. I dropped my keys on the coffee table. I saw him. I said simply. She tensed. Jason. I nodded, not bothering to hide the exhaustion in my voice. Told him to stay away from you. She closed her eyes, tears threatening to spill again. I ended it already. I told you. I needed to say it to his face. We fell into a suffocating silence. Finally, she wiped her tears with the back of her hand. So, is that it? I didn't answer. The weight in my chest pressed me down. I'd walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Eventually, she crept in behind me, arms folded, eyes raw. Mark, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living like we're strangers or enemies. If you want to leave me, please just say so. She was trembling, and something inside me twisted. I turned to face her. My voice came out cold. Why didn't you think of that before you crawled into his bed? She flinched as if slapped. I know. I have no excuse. Dan right, you don't. We stood there, heartbreak swirling in the space between us. I watched a tear roll down her cheek. Part of me wanted to hold her, to make it all vanish, to pretend it never happened. Another part wanted to see her suffer, just as I had. She set her jaw, that flicker of old resolve rising in her. I'll go, she whispered, voice shaking. I'll go if that's what you want. I stared at her. The memory of her first words haunted me. I'm not obligated to explain. The smell of her pillow still in my mind. The nails hammered into Jason's photo. The knowledge that every sweet memory we had was contaminated by the mental reel of her moaning under someone else. Finally, I spoke. Don't bother. I'll do the leaving. Her lips parted in shock. What? I'm done. I said more calmly than I felt. I'm collecting my things tomorrow. Keep the house, keep the furniture. I can't stay here. She shook her head, tears welling up. Mark, are you sure? We can. I cut her off. We can nothing. This place is poison now. All the memories. I can't breathe here anymore. Don't try to stop me. She crumpled to her knees, tears choking her words. I walked out of the kitchen, out of that house of lies. A wave of numbness flooded me. In my mind, I heard my phone recording on a loop. There was a lie here. The next day, I packed a suitcase in a single hour. She stood in the doorway, expression hollow, silent tears drifting down. I zipped my bag shut, looked around the bedroom. The bed where I once felt safe, the battered pillow that still smelled faintly of her shampoo. I reached out, almost touched it, but withdrew my hand at the last second. Then I hoisted the bag onto my shoulder. She opened her mouth, voice trembling. Mark, please, one last chance. I glanced at her, feeling the threads of heartbreak tug at my chest. Then I said quietly, goodbye, Sarah. And I walked out, one foot in front of the other, down the driveway, into my car. The engine roared to life, and I drove away. My gaze flicked to the rearview mirror just once, catching a final glimpse of her silhouette on the porch, arms wrapped around her trembling frame. Then she disappeared from view. I didn't cry. My face felt like stone. Time doesn't heal every wound, I realized. Sometimes it just erases you until you're no one. But at least leaving meant I could start over, or perhaps let the emptiness settle into a shape I could carry without shattering. In my mind, I pictured the garage, the battered photo of Jason pinned with nails, the place where I'd hammered out my rage. I saw the bed, the nights I'd spent lying awake. I heard the echo of her first words again. Asterisk, I'm not obligated to explain. Asterisk, that was the moment we'd truly lost each other. I drove on, feeling the finality of it all. The city lights blurred, and a raw ache pulsed in my gut. But I kept going, even as my breath turned ragged. No more illusions, no more home that reeked of betrayal. Just me, alone with the last remnants of a life that used to be warm and bright. And for the first time since I discovered that note, I felt something almost like peace, twisted and jagged, but asterisk mine. Asterisk, I let the radio hiss with static, not ready for music, not ready for words. Just the hum of the engine under me, pushing me forward. The sky above was dark, starless, but I had enough fuel to keep driving. Far away. Sometimes you reach a point of no return, that final tipping edge. I'd found it. And for now, that was enough. I couldn't say it was justice, or that I'd soared to some moral high ground. But at least I was free from the suffocating pretense of a marriage that had died the instant I saw that single line on her phone. Asterisk, should I tell them the truth or stay silent? Asterisk, she chose silence, and she learned that some silences can never be undone.